Two new charges were filed with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission in December against the Rapides Parish School Board. The charging parties, two employees at Glenmora Elementary School who claimed they were subjected to discrimination and retaliation by their principal, Carol Babb. The first charging party claims they were subjected to retaliation because they complained about reasonable accommodations not being met for students with disabilities. The party also claims they were discriminated against because they were relieved of a coaching position after revealing themselves suffered from a disability. And the other charging party claims they were subjected to discriminatory behavior after also being removed from a coaching position, and because their grievance was not responded to in 5 working days after being filed in accordance with RPSB policy handbook. And the charges were filed on behalf of the parties by Norris Gio Jr.'s office, who provided a statement that reads in part, RPSB has repeatedly ignored several discriminatory complaints filed by multiple employees most recently. However, RPSB can no longer ignore these allegations filed with the EEOC. As a qualified employer under both state and federal anti-discrimination laws, a response to these allegations is warranted. We have requested that the EEOC place these allegations as high priority for immediate intervention and future prevention. We also reached out to the school board, who provided a statement that reads in part, we have been made aware of the recent pending EEOC complaints. Unfortunately, because this is rooted in a personnel issue and may give cause for investigation, we are not able to comment publicly on the situation. However, we do want Rapides Parish to always have faith that when an employee grievance complaint is filed, our intent is to always follow RPSB policy as well as state and federal laws. These potential cases will be no exception. And Gio Jr. also stated that his office will be filing a formal complaint with the U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights Division in Washington, D.C. He has filed 14 charges with the EEOC against the Rapides Parish School Board since December of 2021. 7 were resolved through mediation and 7 are under investigation.